Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural commentator. And today we're going to be talking about an NBA player who was cut from his NBA team, the Chicago Bulls, because of his Christian moral stands on sexuality. He is a Christian. His name is Jaden Ivey, and he was released by the Chicago Bulls because he is against the LGBTQ celebration. I guess that the Chicago Bulls wanted to have a gay pride night or LGBTQ celebration night, and he didn't agree with that. And so he went on to the social media video and he said out loud that as a Christian, he does not agree with celebrating sin. And then shortly after that, the Chicago Bulls cut him from the team. So he actually is facing outright persecution and opposition for his faith in Jesus Christ and the values that are found in the Bible. So let me roll this clip. This is Ben Shapiro. He's going to talk about this, and I think he lays out the situation pretty good, and then I'll comment on what he is saying, and we'll get into this topic.
The minute you say that, gone. Sophomore. So he was drafted 5th overall in 2022 by the Detroit Pistons. And he's a good player. He posted 16 points and 5 assists and 4 rebounds in his rookie year. And then in his second season, he scored 16 points per game. And then he was up to almost 18 points per game. And he got hurt in his third season. And then he was traded to the Chicago Bulls. And that is where the trouble began. So this week, Jaden Ivey posted a video about the NBA's Pride Month. This, of course, is the month where the NBA and pretty much all the NBA teams have nights dedicated to LGBTQ plus minus divided by a sign. And Jaden Ivey got himself in trouble because he posted on Instagram a video talking about NBA's Pride Month. He is a converted, newly religious Christian.
They proclaim Pride Month in the NBA. They proclaim it. They show it to the world. They say, come join us for Pride. For Pride Month.
See, this is what bothered him so much. Now, there are probably a lot of NBA players, especially in the black community, who oppose the whole LGBTQ gay pride phenomenon that we've seen in the last decade or so. There are probably a lot of people in society oppose that out of Christian conviction because they were raised Christian or they've become a Christian and realize that this is totally contrary to the moral standards of Christianity. But not a lot of people actually come right out and say that they disagree with it. Not a lot of people make a public stand because a lot of people are intimidated and they're pressured by their corporations and by their community and their organizations to stay silent. And a lot of Christians have experienced that, where you're in a situation and there is all this rah, rah, rah about the LGBTQ and transgenderism, and you have to decide, okay, am I going to make this an issue, public issue, or am I going to just hold my tongue or stay silent and not comment on it because there's a lot of pressure to be silent? Well, Jaden Ivey actually spoke out on his own private social media post, and he said he doesn't like the fact that he as a player has to celebrate sin, what the Bible, what Christianity calls sin, and that is what got him in trouble. He obviously disagrees and strongly discourages sexual immorality, but he went further than just disagreeing. He said, I don't think we should have this gay pride night. And he's totally 100% correct. Now, the thing that he may not have calculated was that he is going to get persecution and opposition. It seems like he was shocked that he would get fired. And it is a little bit shocking because usually people are given disclaimers for an organization. If the organization says we don't agree with the views that our player explained on social media, blah, blah, blah. But this time they just fired him. I guess Chicago is really far radical left and really anti-Christian enough to actually just come around and fire the guy. So he got himself into trouble for being an outspoken Christian.
To celebrate unrighteousness. They proclaim it.
So you've got to give him kudos for being outspoken. Let's hear what Ben Shapiro has to say.
So that seems like fairly traditional Christian belief right there, that you should not actually celebrate pride in what is considered a sin by the vast majority of the religious world. Well, the immediate response of the Chicago Bulls was to can him. They announced that they had waived him due to conduct detrimental to the team. Apparently,
so remember, he is a really good player. When he was back with the Detroit Pistons, that's when I first learned about him, reading about him and his scoring abilities in the Detroit News, because I somewhat semi-follow the Detroit Pistons, born and raised in the southeastern Michigan area. And so the Pistons have been the team. If I'm going to root for any team, I usually root for the Detroit Pistons. And I think I've actually been to a game. Let's see. Have I been to a Detroit Piston game? Yes, I think I have. I've been to where they play, the Pontiac Silverdome, way back in the day. But the fact is that he was a good player. He was scoring, I think he averaged, in the teens, 13, 14, 15, 16 points a game with the Detroit Pistons. That's pretty good. And so he's a good player. He's a good scorer. And he gets cut because he said something that the woke radical left, the secular humanistic socialist Marxist Democratic Party talking points don't allow. And Chicago is a Democratic stronghold. And so his moral values of Christianity didn't match that city, I guess.
It's very, very bad for the team that he put out an Instagram video proclaiming the same thing that churches all over the country say all the time.
Yeah, so it's really a slap in the face of Christianity, the Bible, Christian churches, Christians all around. It's really a slap in the face and saying we're going to kick you off the team because you're a Christian and you actually talk about your faith and you voice your opinions. And so the Chicago Bulls are actually insulting the whole Christian community in Chicago specifically, but generally all over.
The Chicago Bulls head coach Billy Donovan was asked about all of this. It was suggested that Ivey seems to be spiraling. Now, Ivey has reported depression in the past. It is unclear whether he's in the midst of some sort of mental issue or not. But if you're going to cite evidence of a mental issue, this is not the best evidence. And him just saying traditional religious belief that you shouldn't.
Yeah, that is scary because that's how they used to persecute Christians in the old Soviet Union, under the USSR, under communism. They would treat Christian believers and their values as a sickness. And they would send them to, quote, re-education camps and brainwashing propaganda camps to try to, quote, cure them of their religious sickness. So citing or hinting at possibly mental illness because Jaden Ivey actually speaks moral standards of Christianity, yeah, that's getting close to the sort of the old Marxist communist technique.
Celebrate pride in what is considered a sin. That is not a spiral. Here was the Bulls head coach trying to explain.
I know some of the things that we put out there. I think it's a situation for him where, it's on his own personal Instagram. I don't want to get into what he put out there, but certainly I hope for him, he's okay.
Well, why would you question that he's not okay for espousing traditional Christian biblical values, family values? It's like people who are sick are looking at people who are healthy and saying, I hope he's okay, as if they're sick. And really, it's the reverse. You have to be a sick person mentally to actually embrace these perverted sexual acts and celebrate them. So this is scary stuff, because it's very much like the old Soviet Union that tried to make the Christian believer feel like he's got a sickness that has to be cured.
I don't know, like I've had conversations with Jaden and stuff, and he's been always about rehabbing his knee and trying to get back to the court and wanting to play. But I think organizationally, there's certain standards I think we want to have as an organization.
Certain standards for the organization, like you can't have traditional Christian biblical moral standards, that you have to embrace the sexual deviant perversions of the latest sin. That's a standard. Again, this is gaslighting. This is called gaslighting. You're looking at a healthy person and saying, this person's sick, I hope they get help. We have to maintain certain healthy standards here. That is gaslighting. When you are the sick person, you are the sick organization, and you're expressing concern, deep concern for people who are actually healthy.
We look to those each and every day.
And so, again, not a ringing rebuke there from the coach. Nonetheless, the Bulls let him go because, of course, you cannot say anything that violates the precept of full-scale wokeness on these sorts of issues. So Jaden Ivey then went to Instagram Live to defend himself. He was at the airport.
They said my conduct is detrimental to the team, right? Why didn't they just say we don't agree with his stance on LGBTQ? Why didn't they say that? Well, how is it conduct detrimental to the team? What did I do to the team?
Right. Again, this is very similar to the old Soviet-style propaganda against Christian believers, where they call the Christians enemy of the state, enemy of the people, for their Christian values, because they don't fall down and worship the idol of Soviet central government. And so this is the case where Jaden Ivey is considered sick or needs help or needs counseling, I guess. And so they're going to release him because they want to maintain a, quote, healthy environment on the team. Well, there's nothing healthy about people going along celebrating sexual deviant perversion. LGBTQ night, celebrating LGBTQ Pride Night. That is a sick and twisted celebration. That is satanic. That's an inversion, satanic inversion. Satanism takes the cross and turns it upside down. They take the Lord's Supper and they flip it backwards, and they do everything inverted as an act of rebellion against Christianity and Jesus Christ. Well, that's what this Pride Night does. It takes the filthiest, dirtiest, sickest, twisted sexual deviant perversion, and it celebrates it, and then it ostracizes and opposes and persecutes anyone who's actually has a healthy moral standard like Jaden Ivey. So I really give him kudos because he's acting brave, he's acting courageous, he's standing up, he's taking the heat, he's willing to pay the price, I guess. I think he was a little bit shocked that they would fire him for speaking out like this, but you got to realize you're in an environment that is not sympathetic and is not encouraging Christianity. Quite the opposite.
What did I do to the players? I did nothing but practice with them, play with them, pass the ball to them, good teammate to them. Said good job, good shot. I said, good job, good pass. Way to play, bro. Right? I said these things to my teammates. Was never detrimental to them.
And I don't think any of the players have a problem with Jaden Ivey. I don't think the coach has a problem with Jaden Ivey. It's the organization. They are obviously pandering to the radical left, and Chicago, the political machine, is radical left, secular, humanistic, pro-abortion, pro-gay rights, pro-transgender, pro-LGBTQ, and I guess the organization of the Chicago Bulls wants to kowtow to the radical left. And so Jaden Ivey gets kicked out for being a Christian.
So why is it that the NBA and the Chicago Bulls say that I'm detrimental to the team? How? Because I believe in the truth. Because I know Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
I mean, again, he has a point. The team could have just said, we disagree with his comments. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. By the way, in the UFC, this happens all the time. And Dana White routinely says this about people that he disagrees with in the UFC who say things that are actually quite morally bad. And he will say, you know, you're allowed to say what you want to say. I disagree with it, but it's not my job to sort of police the speech of other people.
And that's what they do in other sports. That's what they do in the NFL, National Hockey League. That's what they do in MLB, baseball, usually. But if you have a situation where you're in a very radical left, secular humanistic city like Chicago or some of the LA, or it could be New York, there's a pandering to the radical left and there's a pandering to the anti-Christian crowd. And Jaden Ivey, I guess, was shocked to find out that Chicago is a little bit different from Detroit. Now, I don't know what would have happened if he had said these things in Detroit. I don't know if they had a gay pride, quote, gay pride night in Detroit, or if they did in the past and he was there and he spoke out against that, or if this is the first time he's ever gone to the social media to speak out against it. But hey, players have their own faith. Players have their own convictions, and they shouldn't be forced to celebrate sin, even if their organization celebrates it. They should be able to opt out or say, hey, I'm not going to be a part of that, and say so. And this is coercion. This is exactly the kind of pressure that the old Soviet Union, the Communist Party there, did for Christians, persecuting them. Except Jaden Ivey is not going to the gulag. He's just sitting down and being separated from the team. He's lost his job.
But the Bulls just cut Ivey. They just waived him, which is kind of incredible. Ivey also went off on Steph Curry. And the reason he's going off on Steph Curry is because Steph Curry is frequently brought up by critics of traditional Christianity in the league, apparently, as sort of the example of what Christianity should look like, meaning that you sort of cite the vaguest verses from the Bible while ignoring actual sort of traditional moral practice. So here's...
Yeah, Steph Curry is just a symbol, I think, to Jaden Ivey of this sort of cultural Christianity, this play it safe Christianity, this positive, super friendly, we never clash with anti-Christian views. We never clash with the cultural dominant, sick moral values, LGBTQ. There are a lot of Christians who will never stand up for righteousness. They will never take a stand on any controversial issues. They just keep their head down. Or, worse yet, they'll appear to be a supporter of the sexual deviant perverts in the LGBTQ acronym. They'll actually appear to the public as almost support it. And you get Christians like that in all the different spheres of life. You get that in especially Hollywood. If you're a Christian in Hollywood, the pressure there is to totally agree and buy into and support the sexual deviant perversion of the LGBTQ movement, and even pro-abortion. And there is a type of Christian in name, I guess, that is willing to sell out Jesus for popularity with the culture. And you see this all over the place. You see it anywhere there is a popular figure. Lauren Daigle was willing to sell out her Christian moral values and embrace LGBTQ. Amy Grant, famous Christian singer, is a sellout to the LGBTQ, promoting gay marriage and actually blessing gay marriage. And there are all kinds of high-profile evangelical Christians who are willing to do the same. But that doesn't make it right. They should be rebuked, and good on Jaden Ivey for rebuking Steph Curry, who is, if he is a Christian, he's acting cowardly and not supporting Jaden Ivey. Actually should come to his aid.
Here was Ivey talking about Steph Curry.
That's why you got Steph Curry, and he not even surrendered, and y'all believe he's a Christian. Y'all believe he's a Christian because he wrote Philippians 4:13. Y'all think he's a Christian. But he cursing just like the world.
We are now almost ready to go, so please take your seats, fasten your seatbelt.
Friendship with the world is enmity with God. He's friendship.
Yeah, Steph Curry probably, when he's with other Christians like Jaden Ivey, he'll talk about Jesus, talk about the Bible, talk about the faith. But then when he's around the world, he'll slide right into that like a chameleon. He'll appear to be a supporter of the LGBTQ and trans rights and abortion rights and all this other stuff, but he won't say a word against these sins in public because he doesn't want to get fired, or he doesn't want to take the heat, he doesn't want to take the persecution. He doesn't want to bear the cross of Christ. And Jaden Ivey says, no, I'm a convert, I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, and I'm going to speak out, and maybe my influence will help people and help change society back to God. So, God bless him.
With the world. He don't know Jesus. And I pray he comes to the truth. That him and his family will be saved in Jesus' name. Because all that stuff is not going to matter on Judgment Day. All them rings he got.
Now, again, I'm just wondering precisely what Ivey said here that merits being waived. I mean, let's be real about this. If he were saying the opposite, that Pride Night is the best. In fact, if he came out as gay today, he would be celebrated by the league. He would be touted as one of the most important basketball players alive if that happened. The NBA has a political bent, without doubt, and they are putting at risk an entire Christian audience and traditionalist audience that look at this and say, hold up, you get waived for saying that you don't believe that Pride Night ought to be celebrated? Not even because you did anything wrong, just because you said that you don't agree with the league's stance on these issues. Back in January 2025, Ivey talked about how he had become a Christian. He sort of explained the story. And again, here he was giving his testimony.
My testimony is that, when you're away from Jesus, when you're not close to him, and when you have a relationship with him, you're gonna, like, Satan is there. He wants to just steal, kill, and destroy. That's all he comes here to do. He doesn't want to give you peace.
And we can imagine that he's talking from experience. These guys are millionaires. They're looked upon by all these fans. Women follow them around, groupies. There's so many temptations that these guys face. And I'm sure he's talking from experience that he has to face these temptations every day. And at some point, he obviously decided, no, enough is enough. I'm not going to stay silent. I'm going to take my stand for Jesus Christ. He died for my sins, and I'm going to stand for him in the world. And if it costs me my NBA career, I hope it doesn't cost him that. I hope another team picks him up because he's a good basketball player. And I hope there's a Christian organization in the NBA or Christian owner that says, hey, we'll take him and we'll pay him millions of dollars and he can win games for us and he can say whatever he wants about Christianity and he's safe with us. I hope he finds work. I hope he's not blackballed out of the league just because he stands for Christ, because that would signal a really dark time in this country if Christians are going to now be fired and blacklisted for their entire career because of Christ.
Wants to make your life hell, and that's what I dealt with, most of my life. And when I came to know Jesus, my life changed, like did a whole 360. And I have that peace, I have that joy, and
well, good for him. Praise the Lord. It sounds like he truly was converted to God. We see the confession, the repentance, and this is what we need to hear more and more. And enough of the easy believism, the cultural Christianity, only taking the bits and pieces of the Bible, what you want. And it sounds like he's taken the whole Bible and all of Jesus, and that's what we need in our culture.
That I've been searching for my entire life.
Now, again, recall that the NBA had to have an entire controversy, engulf it, surrounding whether they should have a night honoring a strip club in Atlanta. Remember this. And that required the NBA to actually step in after weeks of consternation about whether or not that should happen. But apparently the minute you sound off and you say, hey, Pride Night, it's got some connotations that are anti-Christian, the minute you say that, gone. Well, that's an insane tactic from a league that wants to maximize its fan base, not minimize it. And again, during Holy Week for Christians, it's a kind of astonishing stance by the league. I'm hopeful that some other team will give Jaden Ivey another chance. Because, man, the Chicago Bulls really screwed up here in a major, major way. In just a second.
Yes, they did. And I do too. I hope that there's another team that gives him a chance and puts him on the team, because he deserves another chance. He deserves to play NBA basketball, and he can be a great witness for Jesus Christ because he's brave enough to say what needs to be said instead of just keeping silent like he was talking about Steph Curry. Now, like I said before, there are probably lots of different NBA players who are Christians. There are probably many coaches who are Christian. They go to church and they read their Bibles and they pray, but they're afraid to take a stand for Jesus Christ. But there's coming a time, and I think that time is here, where if you deny the Lord before men, he will deny you before the angels of heaven. That's what the Bible teaches. So are you willing to acknowledge Jesus in every sphere of life? Not just on Sunday morning in church, but in the workplace. Are you willing to say to people at work, I am a Christian. The Bible teaches that this is a sin. And so I discourage people from celebrating sin. So I oppose all LGBTQ pride nights. I oppose all transgender pride. I oppose abortion, is the murder of a child in the womb made in the image of God. And now to do that at work or in some organization is risky, because you might be ostracized, you might be persecuted, you might be fired, actually. And I don't know if he thought about what he said before he said it and realized that, hey, this might get me fired. But it sounds like he is so on fire for Jesus that he didn't even care. And we need to take more of an attitude like that. It's like, this is the price that we have to pay. Take up your cross and follow me, Jesus said. The cross is an instrument of death. Are we willing to lose our jobs? Are we willing to lose money? Are we willing to be ostracized and persecuted and opposed in society? Are we willing to lose friends? Are we willing to sacrifice a lot or anything? As Christians, we should be. So just wanted to go through this and say this is a great example of a man who took a stand, and we need to pray for him, pray that others will emulate his bold stand for Jesus Christ, because it is a role model that we need to look to. Well, God bless. We'll see you back next week.